tax as well as international tax topics. And also I have been invited as a panelist in Dombivali Kalyan CP Study Circle, Women Empowerment to contribute on opportunities in direct tax as well as international taxation. With this brief introduction, I welcome CA Jankhana Madam and I would requesting you to please share your views, your knowledge, your experience on this matter and guide us more on international taxation related matters and compliances. Thank you, Madam. Welcome.
Thank you, Neeraji. Now I request CA Jankhana Madam for the start the seminar.
Thank you so much for kind introduction, Nirali. And thank you, BK Chawla sir, for giving me an opportunity to present on the topic. Am I audible?
Yes. You are audible. Arrange.
So hope you have received my PPT, right?
Yeah, I received and I arrange it. 2-3 minutes, your PPT will start.
Okay,
Meanwhile, you may
no
start with
problem.
the lecture. Yeah,
Sure. So hope everyone is like fine, and I have taken the vaccination also. And before getting into the concepts and the tax implications on the inbound and the outbound investments, so just wanted to highlight that it will be an interactive session. It will not be like I will be only speaking and you will be listening. You have to participate wherever the questions has been raised, or you can also raise the questions. Either I will take up at that time, or I can take up later on if time permits. Otherwise, you can email me also all your queries, and I'm happy to resolve the same. So with this note, I start today's presentation, today's seminar. So friends, as of 2021. India continues to be one of the most popular international investment jurisdictions. While global foreign direct investments activity fell by 42% in 2020 due to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So India registered a healthy 13% growth in its FDI inflows. Now, friends, apart from the permissibility of the, just a second. So apart from the permissibility of the various kinds of the cross-border remittances under the provisions of the Indian Exchange Control Regulations, that is FEMA and rules, etc., issued thereunder. The other critical aspect is the Indian taxability in India of this cross-border remittances in the hands of the non-resident payee and any attended withholding tax or the other payments that the Indian payer is required to make to the Indian government in respect of the tax liability on this cross-border remittances. So friends, in the current era, business is not restricted to a single geography, but spans across countries. So where residents of a particular country extend their sphere of business operations to other countries as well. Where a taxpayer who is a resident of a particular country, that is a country of residence, earns income in another country, say source country, then it gives rise to possible double taxation from such income in the hands of the taxpayer. That is in the hands of the source country as well as in the country of residence. So I will be taking all the practical examples, what are the source country and what are the residence country, because the BK Chawla sir has requested me to take up some basic concepts also before directly jumping on the inbound and outbound investments taxation and the tax implications for the better understanding of the subject. So because of the source country taxations and the residence country taxations has led to the tremendous growth of the DTAA, that is double tax avoidance agreements, or the tax treaties between the countries to resolve such cross-border tax conflicts. Because what will happen, friends, India will write to tax whoever comes to India. And whoever goes outside India, also that country also demands a taxation. So this happened, the double taxations of the same income. So then both the countries come together, negotiate the treaties, then they put the right to tax in that, and then ultimately then resolve this. So at present, India has entered into the tax treaties nearly to the 89 countries. So let's see how it will go, and I will explain you the basic stuff. how the taxations get impacted under the double tax avoidance agreement, how to read the treaty for the basic knowledge purpose before advising to the clients, what is a key element to be tested before jumping to the conclusion that this income is taxable or not. Okay, so so sir, request you to present the PPT. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Madam, you are audible.
Yes, sir. The PPT will be displayed.
No, it is not displayed. आपने अपलोड मैडम किया उसको, मतलब
Yeah, I have emailed.
आपने शेयर किया?
Yes, I have already shared to csa.thakkar@gmail.com.
Okay. Then I have to ચિંતન ભાઈ
એ ચાલે છે બીકે જે ટ્રાય કરી રહ્યા છે.
Okay. Madam, just a couple of minutes it will be shared. Hello?
Okay, no problem. So yeah, no problem. Till that time, I just give the example that why. So can someone make like explain or put a point that what is the inbound investment and what are the outbound investments? Just a one-liner. Hello. So what are the foreign direct investments? When we say money comes in India, it's the inbound investments. Why it will help? Why we say that more foreign direct investment should come in India? How it helps to our country? Okay, no problem. So inward investments will improve our local economies by bringing the wealth, job creation, and the infrastructure development. So foreign direct investments is a specific type of inward investments, and it could be consisting of the mergers, acquisitions, or establishing a new operations for the existing businesses in India. So just to expand our economy, where the government generally allows the like automatic route and the approval route, wherein now if you see under the COVID situation or the way before that, the government has allowed the maximum automatic route approach instead of the approval route, so that on that the government and the company will save the time for the compliances. Simultaneously, about the outbound investments, there are some key features are there will be effective utilization of the funds, plug-in efficiencies of the cash trap, regulatory and the tax considerations in the foreign country. So the regulatory considerations in India are the FEMA and the compliances. So what I understand, the Hardik Mehta has already explained you detail about the FEMA related aspects, and so we will be looking into the tax considerations in India. So in the tax consideration, India would be the application of the GAR, such that no one will play with the law. That's the reason that the general anti-avoidance rules has come since 2017. Even though if you are aware of that, currently we are not reporting anywhere in the tax audit report about the GAR reporting, even though the same is in place since 2017. Now the government is postponing the reporting of this again by one another next year. So still you have to make your client aware about this. The GAR is in place, the law is in place, only the reporting has been postponed, so that no one can manipulate the tax planning, no one can like do the tax structure in such a way that to manipulate the law. It should not be happening. Then the availability of the foreign tax credit, underlying tax credit, exemptions available if any. Then there are treaty provisions with references to the cross-border remittances. So there are certain articles are there under the treaties. That is, say Article 5, the permanent establishment we have to see, attribution of the business profits, taxability of the dividend as per the treaty and as per the act, because now the dividend is taxable in the hands of the shareholders. So we have to see which treaty gives us the benefit, and we have to read the law. If suppose one treaty is providing a 10% rate of dividend and the other treaty is providing at 5%. So can I take the benefit of that other treaty? So there are certain laws in that place. There is MFN clause, that is a most favored nation clause is there. So that we have to see step by step. Chintan sir, how much time you will take to display the PPT?
Madam, I am calling right now to Chintan Bhai and taking.
Is it okay if I forward you the PPT and you will be able to display?
No, madam, I am also somewhere out on the driving. But madam, just right now I am calling to Chintan Bhai and just taking the update. Just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, ma'am.
Hello.
Madam, Romil is sharing the screen, madam.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, madam.
Just a second. Can you stop sharing? I'll try because I'm able to join from my laptop.
So now you yourself please join.
Yeah,
Arey,
yeah,
madam, share.
yeah.
Romil,
હા
Romil,
હા બોલો એ હું કરું છું ઓલે
please stop share. Please stop sharing. Jangra ma'am is trying to share from her own laptop itself.
ઓકે
જંખના મેમ તમને ફાવે છે નહીકર વાર લાગશે તો એના કરતા આમાં રહેવા આ જે છે ને તમે રોમિલને કહેજો નેક્સ્ટ એટલે કરી દેશે અને તમે એવું તો એની ડેસ્ક થી એનો કંટ્રોલ લઈ લો એના કમ્પ્યુટરનો નહીકર આમાં પછી 10 મિનિટ 5-10 મિનિટ એમને જશે.
नहीं जस्ट
Right.
सेकंड सर एक वक्त कल एक लास्ट चांस में ट्राई करूँ છું ક્યારથી કે લેપટોપ થી લોગિન કરી શકો હવે થઈ ગયું ફાઇનલી લેપટોપ થી.
ઓકે
Stop
સ્ક્રીન શેર
presently.
આપેલું સ્ક્રીન શેર બધાને આપેલું છે ને રોમિલભાઈ
હા
So should
રિસ્ટ્રિક્ટેડ
you
નથી
stop presenting?
તમે
So I
કરી
will be
લો
able to.
once you will start it will automatically overlap this the latest હશે
No, it is
automatic
showing you
આવવાનું.
cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
હું
Okay,
કરું
રોમિલભાઈ
હું
કરી
સ્ટોપ
લો ને
કરું
screen
છું
share.
હા
Stop કરી દો. Okay, madam. રોમિલભાઈ આમાં લોગ આઉટ જ કરી દો ને એટલે વાત પતે.
Yeah, so you can see my screen, right?
હા યસ
Yes, ma'am.
ઇન્ડિયનમાં થઈ ગયું ને
આ એમની સ્ક્રીન છે ને
હા એમની સ્ક્રીન છે
ઓકે ઓકે પરફેક્ટ.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
હેલો
Yeah, am I audible?
યસ
Okay. Okay. So, treaty provisions with reference to the cross-border remittances. So these are all important points. Background. What is the background of the tax treaties? You have to understand that need for why there is a need for the tax treaties. Process for entering into tax treaties. Types of tax treaty models. OECD and the UN model. So the OECD model is a model that is applicable for the developed country, and India is a developing country. So we are generally having a UN model. Okay. Interpretation of the tax treaties. And the treaty provisions applicable are Article 5 permanent establishment, how to attribute the profit, business profit. So once I determine the in the foreign company is having a permanent establishment in India, then how it should be attributed, means how I will compute the allocate the income which they have earned in India will be taxable in India. Taxability of the dividend paid by an Indian company to a non-resident shareholder. Article 11 is the taxability of the interest paid by an Indian borrower to a non-resident lender. Article 12, taxability of the royalty, technical service fees paid by an Indian payer to a non-resident. Taxability of remittances by an Indian payer to the non-resident involving a income under that capital gains. So it is relevant to understand why is there a need for a separate rules in the form of tax treaties for resolving such cross-border tax in conflicts. So before I proceed with this, I want to give you the basic example why we see for the permanent establishment in India. See, for example, if suppose there are two friends are staying in one home, okay, and say sorry, one person is staying in a say in a rented room, okay, and one day fine the second person will come, suppose his friend Mr. B, Mr. A is staying at home at one place, and Mr. B, his friend, is come one day and requested Mr. A that I want to stay with you for say for example 30 days, okay. Then Mr. A will say, okay, you can stay with me for the 30 days, and these all are the like these all are the cost I'm bearing. But the Mr. B will say, okay, I will pay you later. I will pay you later. Okay, so Mr. B was staying with the Mr. A for 30 days. After that, for some more 30 days, and the 60 days has gone. But that Mr. B is not paying a single rupee to Mr. B for using the electricity, for using the furniture, for using whatever XYZ, the computers, laptops, etc., everything. But Mr. B is not paying a single rupee to Mr. A. Now the Mr. A and Mr. B are the best friends, but still Mr. A is getting a pinch because Mr. A is incurring all the expenses and Mr. B is enjoying the same. Now from this, if you see the best friends, one friend or the one brother or the other brother also cannot like take the cost of other person. So how come the foreign companies come in India, make a profit, and again run away out of India? So whether it will be allowable or not, correct? So that's the reason government had put this permanent establishment concept, that you come to India, you enjoy all our properties, you stay in India, you enjoy everything, but you don't pay the taxes. Then what is the use? So that's the reason now there is a concept of this permanent. So it is a simple layman language I'm explaining why this concept of permanent establishment in India has come. So hope I am clear that what a basic thing I stuff explained to you now. Okay. Now moving to with that logic, there are broadly two systems of taxation. One is source-based system where income earned in a country is taxed in that country in the hands of the recipient of the income. So it means I'm earning income in India, so I will be taxed in India. So foreign company earning income in India, so they will be taxed in India on the source base. Resident based system whereby the worldwide income of a resident of a country is taxed in that country. So for example, Mr. A is staying in India for more than 182 days, so he is a resident. But Mr. A is earning income from outside India, but not from India. But you are resident of India, you are staying in India for more than 182 days, so your global worldwide income will be taxable. That is the resident based system. Okay. So now the question arises whether the India is following a resident based system or the source based system. So please put your answers in the chat box. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so please put your answers in the chat box. Hello. Else I will not able to understand. You are able to understand the basic concepts or not? There are two base systems: source based taxation, जिधर कमाया उधर ही पे करो. Second is a residence based taxation, जहाँ पे तुम रह रहे हो वहाँ पे तुम tax pay करो on the worldwide basis. So India is following which system? Source based system or the residence based system?
Resident based system.
Okay, one answer I got it, resident based system. I want more answers.
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure. See here in the slides, there are two broadly two system of taxations are there. One is source based system taxation, where income earned in a country is taxed in that country in the hands of the recipient of the income. Okay, so in the source base you will not see you are a resident or not resident. You have earned, then you have to pay. The second system is the resident-based system, whereby the worldwide income of a resident of a country is taxed in that country. So even though you are staying in India, you are not earned any salary income from India, but you are working for outside India, you are earning salary from outside India. Okay, you are not earning any single rupee from India, but on the residence basis, because you are staying for more than 180 days and you are resident, so the global income is taxable on the resident based system. Now the question arises whether the India is following a resident based system or the source based system or the hybrid system. It means both.
I guess till now it was following the residence base, but now after this last year amendment, I guess now there is a kind of an hybrid system is they are trying to come up with. That's what I guess.
Okay. Okay. So the answer is India is following a residence based system, but it is coupled with the source based also. So India follows both. So if you see, remember section 9(1). Section 9 is a deeming provision. So they're saying it is deemed to be earned in India, deemed to be accrued in India, deemed to accrue arise in India. So the India is following a resident based system, but it is also following a source based system together. Okay, so that's the reason we have the double taxation, and some countries are following other way around as well. So what are the tax treaties? Tax treaties are the agreements entered between the countries with respect to the taxes on income and on capital, wherein the countries agree to be restricted from taxing, provide relief for the taxes paid in the other treaty countries. So if suppose you are earning income and you are paying taxes in both the countries, then you will get the relief in one of the country. So in the resident, generally the resident based country gives you the tax credit for the tax payment made outside India. So types of the treaties are the bilateral treaty, wherein it entered between the two countries, and the multilateral treaties are between 3 or more countries. So treaties can be limited or comprehensive. So limited means, like for example, it is related to the aircraft leasing taxation only. For that only the treaty. Till now there was no treaty with the Hong Kong, but now there is a treaty with Hong Kong as well. So there are some treaties are there where it was there for the limited purpose only. So if there is no treaty with them, then you have to pay the taxes as per the income tax law. So there are two types of the double taxation. One is jurisdictional double taxation and the other is the economic double taxation. Now please let's pay attention properly, because we are going to take a practical questions in the further slides. So income is subject to tax in two states. So our company is a country R, that is a residence country, and the country S is a source country, that is the income earning country. Income is subject to tax in two states in the hands of the same person. So shared taxing rights, that is a residence in two states, it means FTS and royalty. So we pay FTS to outside India. Say for example, professional fees we pay to a person to resident outside India. Okay, but the India, as per the 917, if you are aware of, 917 says whether or not service render in India. मतलब तुम कहाँ पे भी सर्विस रेंडर कर दो, तुम्हें इंडिया में टैक्स पे करना ही है as per the 917. So in the FTS, so as per the India, as per the Income Tax Act under 115, then the royalty taxable will be the 10-point surcharge and cess. And so, for example, in the treaty, only the 10% rate is there. Then the people go for the treaty benefit. Then under the treaty, 10% rate hai, or under the income tax, 10.3, 10.608, yeah, whatever that surcharge and cess will be applicable on that basis, the tax will be done. So it is a jurisdictional double taxation. It is a sharing tax rights. Okay. Now the economic double taxation in this, the same economic stream of the income tax in either the same or the different states, but in the hands of the different taxpayers. So the business profit and the dividend in the different states. Now, for example, export import. If you're selling outside India, but you're selling outside India, but you will be paying tax in India only. So there are many other examples for this. Just a second now. So in the economic double taxation, examples are the import of goods, transfer pricing adjustment. So if suppose I am purchasing from outside India or I am selling to outside India, so the AO will say, okay, margin if you have kept 10%, then the AO will say that then the margin would have been 11%. Then how you are charging the 10% profit in that? Then you would have added 1% more. So in that situation, what is happening? I am collecting 10 rupees from a person, but as per the department, the amount should be 11 rupees and not the 10 rupees. So then that manner, it will be taxed in India in the hands of one person only. That the other party will not get affected in that situation. Okay. So moving to the next slide. There are applicability of the treaty is a conditional. Treaties do not impose the taxation since they are not given the function of being tax instruments. So scope of section 5 and section 9 needs to be examined. If the income is liable to tax in India, then the relevant treaty is applicable. So treaty does not automatically give the precedence, but the domestic tax laws give the precedence. So then the question arises: which law will give the precedence? Which law has a right to tax? So the India comes first because as per the India we are looking into that. So treaties are given by the domestic legislation, and therefore there are the other exceptions have been provided. That is the general anti-avoidance rules, limitation of benefit rules, providing the non-discrimination doctrine is not applicable on the tax rate. So if suppose a person will come, the foreign company cannot come to, if even though they have a permanent establishment in India, but foreign company cannot argue and say that there is a non-discrimination. मेरा भी POEM है. I have also permanent establishment in India. I should be treated in an equal manner with the Indian companies. So Indian companies का rate is 30% tax, or the Indian company का rates, for example, say the 25% because of that 115BAA and all. Then the foreign company don't have the right to ask for that the lower rates. That the so the law, the treaty is very clear, or the section 90 is very clear that the non-discrimination for the tax rates you cannot adopt, you cannot compare that there is a non-discrimination. Yeah, but for example, if you say the non-discrimination for the other things, expects for the dividend or for the make available, then you can go and argue for that. So this I already explained what is the OECD model. OECD model is generally for the developed countries, and the UN model is for the developing countries. India is following a UN model because India is still a developing country. So these are the overview of the tax treaty. What are the scope provisions are there? Article 1, 2 and all. Definition provision, because the way we have the section 2 definition under the Income Tax Act, so there are also the general definition provisions are there. General definition, residence, permanent establishment, elimination of double taxations, and these are the substantive provisions. So these are the how the taxing rights will take place for the Article 7, interest, royalty, capital gains. So these are the substantive provisions are there. So here this convention, if you read Article 1, which says that this convention shall apply to a person who are residents of one or both of the contracting state. It is a fiscally transparent for the partnership. Likewise, Article 2, the term person includes individual, company and any other body of the persons. So again, what is the meaning of the person or the person resident having a place of effective management or not? Again, those issues will come up. So I'm just touching the basics, so you will be aware of what we are discussing in the further slides. Okay. So here the Article 4 of the OECD and UN model usually consider the minor modifications. That is a resident of a contracting state. We always, whenever read, it start with resident of a contracting state. So it means any person who under the laws of that state, in that country, is liable to tax therein. So it's liable to tax in that other country by reason of his domicile, means a permanency, residence, place of management, or any other criterion of the similar nature. So here they have word use the liable to tax. Then the general question arises. Now you are aware of in the last year amendment they have also put the liable to tax concept under the income tax as well. But basically, what is the meaning of liable to tax? Why so much discussions are going for the liable to tax and the subject to tax? So can anyone just give a brief description about it? What is the meaning of liable to tax and what is the meaning of subject to tax? I will definitely explain, but I want to know, okay, how much you know about this, the liable to tax and the subject to tax.
So what's the you are asking what is the difference between liable to take tax and subject to tax?
Sorry.
You are asking what is the difference between liable to tax and subject to tax?
Yes. You can take any example of that and can elaborate more on that, because these all are the basic things which we need to understand.
Like
Okay,
according
no
to
problem,
legal
no problem.
requirements,
I'll take it up
non-union.
without investing much time on that. So I'll explain the since all you are aware about this, the dividend. Now the dividend is taxable in the hands of the shareholders. But earlier, before that, uh, in which section the dividend income will be included under the income section? Which section says that the income definition should include the dividend income as well? Which section includes under the scope? Which section provides a scope to include the dividend income? To put it in a better way. So section 8 is a section 8 under the Income Tax Act, which says that the income includes the dividend income. Okay, section 224 also includes, but the section state 8 is specifically to that. So under the section 8, we were liable to, like, it was falling under the income provisions per se. So once it fall under the section 8, so the dividend income is taxable. But which section was giving the exemption? The section 10 was giving the exemption, that is section 1034 and 1035. That is the 1034 for the shares and the 1035 for the mutual fund. So if you see, I am liable to tax as per the section 8. Okay. But I'm not subject to tax because of the section 1034 and 1035. तो मैं इनकम के अंदर फिट होता हूँ बट मैं इनकम से बाहर निकल रहा हूँ बिकॉज मैं 1034 एंड 1035 का मुझे एग्जाम्पशन मिल रहा है. तो इफ आई वांट टू एक्सप्लेन समवन कि ये मैं लायबल टू टैक्स होता हूँ सेक्शन 8 के अंदर, तो मैं जब भी कंप्यूटेशन बनाऊंगी तो व्हाट आई डू, आई विल पुट डिविडेंड इनकम. आई विल राइट इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज में सेक्शन 56 में, इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज में इनकम फ्रॉम डिविडेंड इनकम अर्न फ्रॉम म्यूचुअल फंड शेयर्स. आई पुट 1 lakh rupees. Below that I will write less exempt under 1034 and 1035. So when I'm reducing 1035, it means I'm saying that I was liable, but I'm not subject to because I'm getting an exemption. So subject to tax means actual payment of tax. I'm not paying actually, so I'm not subjecting to tax. Okay, but I was liable to tax. So section 8 gives me the provision of the liable to tax. So hope I'm clear and explaining the law that what is the meaning of liable and what is the meaning of subject. लायबल टू टैक्स में तुम्हारे पैसा तुम्हारे पॉकेट से नहीं जाता है, सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स में तुम्हारा पैसा पॉकेट से जाता है, सो दैट इज सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स. सो व्हाट द ट्रीटी इज हैम्परिंग ऑन कि तुम लायबल टू टैक्स होना चाहिए करके. सो इट मीन सेक्शन 8 इज गिविंग अ governing provision saying that dividend is taxable, but the section 8, by virtue of section 8, then I am not subject to tax, I am not paying a tax to the government. So that is a subject to tax and this is a liable to tax. So hope I'm clear the providing the definition about it. Any doubts on that? Hello. Okay, now moving to the next slide. The term resident of a contracting state means any person who under the laws of that state is liable to tax domicile, residence, place of management, any other criteria of the similar nature. So we will discuss more about this in the subsequent slides. So this article 10 and 11 about the dividend taxation, how this dividend
Hello? Jankana madam, you unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
I muted everybody because there was a noise.
No problem.
Okay, ma'am.
So we will discuss about the 10 11 section, article 10 and 11 about the dividend interest. That what does dividend includes, the definition, shares, participating in profits rights, other rights not being a debt or claims. Because if you see under the treaty, the dividend is defined as a wider definition they have given. They have include not only shares. In India, we always see the dividend is from perspective of the shares only of the mutual funds. But under the treaty, it reads that dividend means shares, participating in profit rights, other rights not being debt claims, etc. So it suppose a lender is giving a borrower the maximum benefit out of the loan or the interest or what. So even though the treaty treat that transaction as a dividend, that under the disguise transaction as a dividend. So the treaty definition of the dividend is wider as compared to the act. The tax treaty imposes a limitation on the maximum rate to be charged by the source country, and the condition of the beneficial owner exists. So how this beneficial owner we have to determine what is the meaning of the beneficial owner, we will discuss in the subsequent slides. Dividend or interest earned in effectively connected with P, then it will be taxed under the Article 7, that is 40% rate, and whatever if it is connected to the permanent establishment in India. For the Article 13, that is a capital gains, the alienation of the property, the word used there in the, so it is wide enough to cover the exchange, gift, etc., everything. So till now, if you remember, in India, the slum sale exchange was not taxable. Slum sale transaction per se was taxable, but not the exchange. Now they have included the slum sale definition wider than they said under the slum sale exchange also not now covered under the taxability, because they have overruled the decision of the Bharat Bijli of the Mumbai Tribunal decision, and now they said that slum exchange is also taxable, but under the treaty it covers a wide enough, the alienation of property covers the sale, exchange, gift, etc. So there are various categories of the capital gains, from immovable property, from movable property, from the business property, from the shares. Various treatment has been given under the different tax treaties. Now there are the treaty shopping, which is the Azad Bachao Andolan cases. The based on the TRC, and the treaty shopping is not allowed generally based on the India-Mauritius treaty. So this is the things which we just discussed now about the liable to tax and the subject to tax. Now you have to answer this question. Here the facts are: AOP has earned the income from sale of Indian company shares. Okay, AOP hold a valid tax residency certificate of the country R, that is a residence country. You should have the tax residency certificate to claim the benefit of the treaty. So under the treaty, the capital gain is taxable in the resident country only. So I will explain you just to give before getting into the facts of this case study. I want to just highlight that under the treaty, under the Income Tax Act, capital gains will be taxable in India. Okay, but if suppose a person is holding a valid tax residency certificate, then that person can claim the treaty benefit, right, and say that it will be taxable in my resident country and it will not be taxable in India. So by virtue of that, if I hold a valid tax residency certificate, valid Form 10F, and then that tax certificate is mentioning that you are eligible for the treaty benefits, then you can claim that benefit and you will be liable to tax in your country. Okay, now in this case, the AOP has earned income from sale of the Indian company shares. AOP is holding, that is association of person is holding a valid tax residency certificate of the country R, that is country of residence. Okay, as per the RNIS, that is a resident source tax treaty provisions, capital gains exemption on sale of the unlisted shares. AOP are not subjected to tax in a country R. Since income earned by the AOP from sale of Indian company shares cannot be treated as a business income in the country R. So whether the treaty benefit is available to the association of person or no. So here is the case. For example, so you read this country R and the country S. Country S is India. India से ये AOP ने ये income कमाया है. Indian listed shares से, sale of Indian listed shares से income it has been earned. Okay. Now this AOP is saying that कि मैं India, say for example India Denmark ले लो. So India Denmark treaty के हिसाब से I will be taxable in the resident in Denmark only. I will be not taxable in India. Okay. अभी डेनमार्क में भी वो टैक्स नहीं पे कर रहा है, बिकॉज डेनमार्क में लॉ है कि इफ यू आर नॉट अर्निंग इनकम फ्रॉम द बिजनेस इनकम, then you are not liable to tax in Denmark also. So here it is a case of scenario, it is a double non-taxation. So you are not taxable in India, saying that I will be taxable in Denmark. In Denmark, I am saying I am not liable to pay tax because in Denmark में अगर मेरा business income है तो मेरे को टैक्स होगा, और ये वाला इनकम उसका कैपिटल गेन्स है. So that's the reason they are not paying tax in Denmark also. So the question arises whether the treaty benefit is available to the AOP or not.
Yes, it is available. Treaty benefit will be available.
Can you see my screen?
Hello. Yeah. Your
Hello?
screen is visible. Yeah,
Yes,
your screen
madam.
is visible.
It is visible.
It is visible.
Okay.
According to me, it would be treaty benefit would be available, I guess.
Sorry?
Treaty benefit will be available.
So no. You are saying yes, right, Chintan?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of 33 participants, only 3 people are 31 participants, only 3 people are responding. This is not done. You have to respond. What if suppose your client will ask now? At least say yes or no. Question समझा ना?
Janknaji, તમારો video પણ તમે on કરશો તો like it would be more interactive. That's what I guess. Like people would be able to see you and see your expression.
Yeah, sure. I will put my video on.
તમે જ કહી દો, madam.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. The treaty benefit is available. The reason being is in the
We have to
Azadi
see,
Bachao case law and even in the
what
Mira
is liable
Bhatia.
to, it is that income is liable to tax, though it is not subject to tax, I guess.
Correct. So in both the countries, in India, I am saying I will be liable to tax in Denmark, so I will not pay taxes in India. And India, I am in Denmark, I am liable to tax, but I'm not subject to tax because their provision is saying you don't have the business income, so you are not liable to pay the taxes in that country. So you can take that benefit. And just supporting case laws are the Azadi Bachao, which says that the double non-taxation can also be a scenario. Okay. And the Mira Bhatia, that is a special bench decision, which also allows that the double non-taxation can also be a scenario. But now but we don't know, like if the person should not play around with the law, and they should not do the redomiciliation. Like one should not move from one country by investing and after that moving to other country just to take the benefit of the law. Okay, moving to the next slide, next case laws. So everyone is going to answer, then only I will take this case study, otherwise I just move the next slide, because I have put these efforts to such that it will be an interactive session.
Yes, even I request all the members, Chavdaji, તમે પણ you please participate, and you other members, Romil bhai and everyone who is present, please. Geet પણ I guess he is also active, but please participate, Geet, and everyone who is
Yeah, you
present
please
here.
put your answers. See, there mistake होगा तो mistakes तो मेरे से भी होता है. Okay, then you should say at least yes or no कि correct है कि नहीं है करके. Then you only will able to learn more and give your
Neera must also be
and
there.
it is a
You
value
please
addition
also,
to
and
us,
everyone
all
please
of us.
turn on the video, so then only we will be able to be active, because otherwise we will get involved in other work. So please turn on the video and actively participate in the video. She has done very hard work, so it's our job also
Really.
to participate actively, and to it would be beneficial to us only.
Okay. Now, in the third case law, in the third facts of the case, the X Limited is a company incorporated in India. X Limited has a branch office in Singapore. Okay. Income earned by the Singapore branch is as under, that is interest income from the UK entity, because branch is having this UK company also. Income from other sources in the Singapore. Now, withholding tax rates presumed to be as under, that is India UK treaty is 15%. And Singapore UK treaty is 10%. So on payments made by UK to Singapore branch, which treaty will govern the withholding tax? So this X Limited is the head office, is having a branch in Singapore. Okay. So this branch is earning an income from the UK. Now UK have to withhold the tax, but UK will apply UK Singapore treaty or UK will apply India UK treaty. Just don't judge the answer with the rate of withholding tax that is a low percentage. Singapore UK में 10% and India UK में 15%. Just think about it. Okay, why this question has come? So on payments made by UK to Singapore branch, which treaty will govern the withholding tax? UK Singapore treaty or the UK India treaty? At least try, na?
UK Singapore.
Okay, UK Singapore. What is the basis for that? If I can ask, otherwise it's okay. If you don't tell what is the basis, that will be fine. So yeah, I want more answers. It should be in the chat box. Just you have to type UK Singapore, US or UI. Okay, I'll give the hint. Okay. See, अगर suppose simple case होता कि इंडिया सिंगापुर को पे करता है तो इंडिया सिंगापुर आता था. Correct. अभी ये 3 countries are involved. If you see, I have mentioned X Limited has a branch office. See, we always say na branch HO से decide होता है. So branch Singapore is a branch. So head office mean to X Limited है, which is based in India. Ultimately, this income whatever they have earned or this has been created, so they have the main is a head office. So as per the section 5 or the section 6, which says that the branch HO and branch is one and the same. So then in that situation, UK, it should be treated as UK is directly paying to X Limited and the India will apply, or UK will still apply the UK Singapore. As per the Indian income tax law, HO and branch are one and the same. So we generally go for the HO ka treaty. HO is based in which country? अभी तो बोलो.
India.
India. Everyone agrees India UK India treaty. At least say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now moving to the next slide. Mr. A is a citizen of USA. He is deputed to India to oversee the Indian company's operations on a long-term assignment of 3 years. He has a house in US and in India. The US house is rented out to a third party, while the Indian house is occupied by him and his family. Assuming Mr. A is a tax resident of India, how would you determine his residential status of Mr. A under the India-US tax treaty?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, so Mr. A is a citizen of USA. He is deputed to India to oversee the Indian operations on a long-term assignment of 3 years. He has a house in US and in India. The US house is rented out to a third party, while the Indian house is occupied by him and his family. So assuming Mr. A is a tax resident of India, how would you determine his residential of Mr. A under the India-US treaty?
So you are talking about what would be the in a house in USA, is it? What will be tax
So whether
implications?
it will be treated under the US treaty, India-US treaty also, it will be treated as a US resident, or you will not say no, as per the treaty it is not a resident of India. So generally I will explain. So what has happened, so if it has a permanent home both in India and USA, then it will be very difficult situations. Then the tiebreaker rule and all other rules will apply. So but then we have to see where his vital interest where he is more close, in India, or it is there his economic interest is lied where. So if it is there more in India for the long term 3 years project, so then it will be treated as a resident of the USA only as per the India-US treaty. So we have to always see where it is more close interest lies, whether its main interest is in India, what is the economic interest is there. So if it is suppose now because of the corona also, like many things are, the questions are coming. So very, sorry, someone is coming. Moving to the another case study, foreign tax credit. Now, all you are everyone is aware about it, right? In India, we have to see the line by line, each source by source foreign tax credit. You cannot do just total up for the foreign tax credit and apply it to that. So here is the question: the foreign income source by source basis, as per the FTC rules, the interest income is 1,000, royalty income is 1,000. On the consolidated basis, I think someone is speaking in between. Hello. Yeah, source by source, the rules in the foreign income 1,000, royalty income 1,000. The consolidated basis, the income is 2,000 rupees. Tax liability in India on the foreign income, say 30% 300, the royalty income say 300, and the consolidated is 600. Now here the A is tax liability in India. Okay. Now tax paid in, hello.
Sir,
Anyone has a question on this? Hello.
So accordingly, that the rent that would be received from the house located in USA would be taxed in India. Is it the case?
Yeah, because he will be a resident in India.
Okay.
Any other questions on this?
But then the first right for the taxability would be that of the USA, isn't it? That the case, like
Sorry. See, I'm not able to hear you, but I just want to highlight that if person is a citizen of India, based on the citizenship, that residency criteria will not be determined. So there are 3 to 4 other factors is that we have to see the permanency test, habitual interest test, vital interest test, the close to the activity test. So all these things we have to examine, and then only we will be able to arrive at whether it will be a resident in India or not, as per the India-US treaty also. So whatever you tax paid, whatever taxes paid outside India, that will be allowed as a foreign tax credit in India. Now moving to the next slide. So here the foreign income is the tax liability against 1,000 rupees. The tax liability is 300. Against the royalty income 1,000, the tax liability is 300 rupees. On the total basis is a 600. Now tax paid in foreign country on the foreign income, say interest taxable at 25% and the royalty is 35%. Okay. So in the interest income, say 25% from 1,000, I will be tax liable in outside India 250 rupees only. In India, I am 300 liable to pay, but in foreign country, I am liable to pay 250. So the question arises, how much tax credit I will get? Can I take 300 minus 300, or I should take 300 minus 250? Against this also, royalty income, 300 tax liability in India. I have paid the taxes in foreign country 35%, so that is 350 rupees. So how much tax credit I will get? What should be the amount of foreign tax credit available in India?
I guess it would be available 250 rupees, like going by the percentage.
Or you will take the total 250 plus 350 again 600.
No. I guess it would be 250 only.
Okay, so in first case 250, it will be restricted to 250. And what about the other case, royalty income 300? You will claim refund out of it.
I didn't got the other question.
So other question, royalty income, you have the tax liability in the foreign income, tax liability in India on the foreign income 300 rupees. You have paid in foreign country 350 rupees. So India में तुम जब tax return बनाते हो तो your tax payable is 300 rupees.
300. So then the tax credit that I will take would be 300 rupees.
Yeah, then it will be restricted to 300 rupees. 300. Then unutilized foreign tax credit will be 50 rupees.
So I won't be able to.
So
Like,
yeah, then there
that
is no
would go in
mechanism
the-
to claim the refund back.
Okay, that I need to claim it from USA, let's say, not from India, right?
I'm not sure whether the USA will allow you, because in the USA also they will say, okay, on what basis we will allow you. Whatever the credit is available in India, you will get it. But the US people will ask you the 350 rupees you have to. US will not decide how much you are taxable in India.
Okay, so India will refund it, or nobody will refund it?
Yeah.
No, nobody will refund it. Is
Your
it the
voice
case?
is very low. Hello.
Yeah, I'm saying that nobody will refund it, right?
No.
That amount will not be able to claim any refund out of that 350
No,
rupees,
no.
right?
Because as per the foreign tax FTC rules.
Okay, okay.
Now we go to the main thing, the choice of the acquisition of the funding. A purchaser using an Indian acquisition vehicle to carry out an acquisition for cash needs to decide whether to fund the vehicle with a debt, equity, or a hybrid instrument that combines the characteristics of both. The principles underlying these approaches are discussed below. So in debt, there will be tax deductibility of the interest, makes debt funding an attractive method of funding. Debt borrowed in foreign currency is governed by the RBI ECB guidelines, which were liberalized in 2019 to encourage the foreign investment and improves the ease of doing business in India. ECB regulations notified by the RBI outline various conditions for the foreign currency, and then there is a concept of eligible borrower, recognized lender, forms of ECB, what are the end use of the restrictions, and all in cost ceiling. So to that extent only you can ask for the ECB. So so this is the mechanism of the debt, and the ECB norms you have to comply with them. Now borrowed funds from an Indian financial institution is worth considering as an interest on such loans can be deducted from the operating profits. This option is likely to have the following advantages, that is no regulatory approvals required, flexibility in repayment of funds, no ceiling on rate of interest, no hedging arrangement required, no WHT on interest. However, bank loans may have the end use restrictions, and other restrictions I have mentioned. And what are the checklists you have to maintain for the debt funding, that also I have mentioned below. Moving to the deductibility of the interest account for the company's books of account is allowed for the tax purpose. Interest on loans from the financial institutions and banks is normally only allowed when they actually paid. So the other interest to resident is normally deductible from the business profits, provided the appropriate taxes have been withheld, or based on the no withholding certificates, then they can apply. Now there are the other thin capitalization rules are also there, wherein the total interest deduction for the Indian companies and the permanent establishment is capped at the 30% of the EBITDA. So wherein the thin capitalization rules are there, then you have to maintain about that the 30% deductibilities, or the how much you can apply to that, seeing overall the taxability of the company. The equity, the most sectors in India have been opened up for the foreign investment. So no approvals from the government of India should be necessary for the issue of new shares in these sectors. Dividends can be freely repatriated under the current exchange control regulations. Now, under the provisions of the Indian tax laws, dividend income is taxable in the hands of the shareholders receiving such income. Dividend payments are subject to WHT at 10% for the residents and the 20% for the non-residents. Now, subject to the TT rates. Now, here also various countries provides a rate of 5% and the 10%. So then the question arises, how can I take the benefit of that? So we will discuss that in further. Further, for outbound investments, gross dividends received by an Indian company from the specified foreign company are taxable at the concessional rate of 17%. So that will be only applicable if the minimum percent of the shareholding is a 26% shareholding should be there in that company. Under the current company law, equity share capital cannot be withdrawn during the lifespan of the companies. Further, there are the levy of the buyback tax of 23.296%. Now, here I have taken the case study to explain you that how these countries will be working for each country's taxations and all. Then how would be the flow of funds, etc. So now here the DEF Private Limited is a private company which is involved in other wholesale goods business. So at DEF, I have mentioned the short name as a DPL. DPL is exploring the following options in relation to the investments outside India, having regard to the long-term growth plans of the business and sourcing the opportunities outside India. So the first option he is looking for to incorporate the wholly owned subsidiary in the Hong Kong. So they are in India, wholly owned subsidiary. So it is an outbound investment. I want to make the investment outside India. And again, in the second one, DPL to incorporate the wholly owned subsidiary in Singapore. So he is looking for the second option. What will happen if I incorporate in the Singapore? There also I will hold 100%. Third option is the DPL to incorporate the wholly owned subsidiary in the UAE. And in the last, Mr. A and DPL. So the one individual and the other company to incorporate a new company in Hong Kong, Singapore, or the UAE. So the Mr. A will be holding more than 50% in that new company, and the balance will be the DPL will be holding. So the Mr. A will be holding more than 50%, the majority stake in that. Now, the offshore entity that may be set up in the jurisdictions identified would be the full-fledged entity. It will source goods and also make sales in its own name outside India. New company may also procure goods from the DPL. So it means some goods will come from here also, means from its shareholders. The goods procured from the DPL is expected to be less than 25% of its annual turnover. So just to prove that I am not, my activity is not dependent with the DPL. Then the assumptions here, the DPL and the Mr. A fulfilled all FEMA conditions and permitted to set up the wholly owned subsidiary or JV under the automatic route. Okay, so the question arises, how this tax on dividend income will be taxed. It will be taxed here. If you see, the 50% will be held by Mr. A and DPL will be holding the balance X%, that is 40, that is balance 50%. Or say here it will be holding 51%, so then it will be then the DPL will be holding a 49%. So if suppose DPL is receiving a dividend from a new company, so section 115 BPT will be applicable or not. You please read these provisions, which read as where the total income of an SSE being an Indian company includes any income by way of a dividend declared, distributed, or paid by a specified foreign company. The income tax payable shall be the aggregate of the amount of income tax calculated on income by way of such dividends at the rate of 15% and the amount of income tax with which the SSE would have been chargeable had its in total income been reduced by aforesaid income. And here they have mentioned the specified foreign income means a foreign company in which the Indian company holds 26%. So the question to you, DPL will be taxed at what rate and Mr. A will be taxed at what rate? Please answer this. I will not display the answer now. Mr. A will be taxed at what rate? Dividend income. Dividend received from foreign company will be taxable at what rate? In the hands of the company and in the hands of the individual. Please put your answers on in the chat box.
The question is at what rate the dividend will be taxable in India?
Sorry?
Your question is like dividend will be taxed at what rate in India in case of a foreign company dividend, is it?
Yeah. It is an outbound investment. DPL has invested outside India and earning a dividend income. Mr. A has invested outside India and earned the dividend income. So what will be the tax rate applicable for the Indian company and for the individual? Here is the provision under section 115 BBD. It is very easy. It is a simple question. आज आके client पूछेगा मैंने outside India invest किया है, dividend earn किया, क्या rate पे tax होगा?
It will be taxed at normal rate, I guess, or like.
Hello.
It will be taxed at a normal rate, or there is any like special provision is there? Is it like?
So I'm asking that only to you.
No idea.
Madam, I think there the advantage of treaty will be available.
No, I'm just first asking you the under the act.
It will be taxed at a normal rate, madam.
Who will be taxed at normal rate?
Dividend earned in abroad.
But who, individual or company?
Both, I guess.
Okay. Whosoever is earning, madam, if I earned individually, then it will be taxed in the individual hand, otherwise in the hands of the company.
No, so you are saying individual will be taxed at a slab rate and the company will be taxed at 30%.
Whatever tax rate is available under ITF.
I guess,
Then what is the meaning of this provision 115 BBD?
Yes.
Tax on that's the reason I have displayed this provision, that the tax on certain dividends received from foreign companies where the total income of an SSE being an Indian company. So here they have mentioned
taxed at a 15%, I guess.
yeah 15% will come, because here it read as where the total income of an SSE being an Indian company. So this 115 BBD is beneficial to the company who will be taxable at the rate of 15%, because they are fulfilling this criteria of holding more than 26%. So DPL is holding more than 26% in new company. So that's the reason DPL can be taxed at the rate of 15%, and Mr. A will be taxable at the under the slab rate, because this 115 BBD is only applicable to the Indian companies. It is not applicable to the individual.
So individual would be taxed at a normal
Your
slab
voice
rate,
is
right?
very low. Hello.
Yeah, so individual would be taxed at a normal tax rate, is it?
At a normal slab rate, yeah.
Okay.
So dividend received from the new company should be taxable at the beneficial rate of 17, that is 15% plus surcharge and cess under section 115 BBD, without deduction for expenses. Yeah, you will not get any expenses, and at the applicable rates in the hands of the Mr. A in India. Dividend income from the foreign company would be chargeable to tax in the hands of the Mr. A under the head income from other sources at the applicable rate of tax. Further, in the new cases set up in Singapore, DPL and Mr. A should be able to claim the underlying tax credit, that is foreign tax credit, and under the India-Singapore Treaty. The transaction between the DPL and the new company should be governed by the transfer pricing regulations, because they entered the goods, they entered into the international transactions, and wherein the holding is exceeding the 26%. So that's the reason transfer pricing provisions will apply. Now, the new company will be regarded as a resident in India if during the tax year its POEM is in India, that is place of effective management in India. If suppose, why I have mentioned here less than 25% of the turnover. So new company is procuring less than 25% from DPL. So it should not happen that they should say that they are having a place of effective management in India. So DPL is not deciding what new company will do, what all transaction is due. New company is not dependent on DPL. His turnover is also less than 25%. So you have to see all the activity test and etc. everything while determining the each and every transactions, while advising to the client for the outbound investment or the inbound investment. So not only this dividend, you have to see the activity also. The way I have mentioned here, the goods procured from DPL is expected to be less than the 25% of its annual turnover. So when they start, generally Indian company invests outside India. So generally Indian company feels that that my goods should be promoted. Like we said, the Make in India initiative, but generally people want to give more goods outside India to promote their products as well. So they may started selling the goods outside India. So it could be possible. Then you have to be very mindful while advising to the client whether it will be whether they have the POM in India, how this director meetings etc. is holding, how the decisions have been taken. So all these are the mandates. So these are the Indian company ITR forms. I just put up for the screenshot as per the latest after downloading from the income tax website. So these are the disclosures, details of the foreign assets, income from any source outside India, foreign depository accounts. You have to mention country name, name of the financial institutions, peak balance during the period. So this, while advising the client, you not only have to see that the what and all investments at, but you also be aware of that you have to disclose each and everything in India now. This is the Indian company ITR form. I just pasted it for your ready reference. These are the other than Indian company ITR forms, that is like the individual, wherein from the assessment year 2020 onwards.
It is not visible, Jankna ma'am. Like it is not like it is a case study 4, that is what is appearing on the screen. That ITR form is not appearing.
ITR form is not appearing. I'm on page number 31.
No, it is just case study for residents. That's what is appearing. Now it is there. Now there is some other slide is there. That's not an ITR, I guess, but then ITR is yet not appearing.
Slide number 31.
Now that your PPT presentation is appearing, it is like very provision of Income Tax Act. That is what is appearing over the screen. No issues. You may carry on, like otherwise it will waste. Slide number 18 is appearing. You may resume the slide, so I guess that would sort out the issue.
गाड़ी हमने लाया था कि क्या लाया
No issues, ma'am. You can carry on, like no issues on.
No, but that is important, no? Just a second.
हम कदाच यूट्यूब कनेक्शन होने लीधी ना त्यारा तरक लाई दी लगभग गाड़ी तो मैं मुझे इतना कम
Just a second, no?
Yeah.
Can you see now?
Yeah. Now it's Indian company ITR form. That's what is visible.
Hello?
Yeah, it's now Indian company ITR form is visible, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is the format of this disclosure of the foreign assets and the income from any source outside India. So while advising the clients, you have to also be like aware of all these things, that you have to fill up all these details for this assessment year 21-22. For the Indian companies having any.
So Indian company needs to mention their foreign assets and what's their balance and everything. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Foreign equity debt interest held. So entire thing, the peak value of the investment during the period.
Okay.
So this is just for the Indian company ITR form. And now the other than ITR form, other than company ITR forms, as you are aware that from AY 2021, they have started asking for not your the travel details, foreign, individuals should report the electricity bill incurring in the foreign currency, etc. That they have to consumption of exceeding 1 lakh rupees incurred in the travel to a foreign country exceeding 2 lakh rupees, deposited amount or aggregate of amount exceeding 1 crore in one or more current account during the previous year. So now this all need to be disclosed since from last year. So this is again for your ready reference so that it will be in place whenever you advise your client. Yeah, so now this is an interesting one. Applicability of section 206 AB. So you all are aware, right? This is a new provisions which will be effective applicable from 1st July, correct? So the special provisions for the deduction of tax at source for the non-filers of the income tax return. So you must be wondering that why we are discussing now. But if you read minutely the provisions of the act, it read as notwithstanding anything contained in any other provision of this act. So it is a notwithstanding provision at the first place, which is read as where tax is required to be deducted at source under the provision of chapter 17B. That chapter 17B includes section 195 as well. Other than section 192, 192A, 194B. So it is other than, this is exclusions. On any sum or income or amount paid or payable or credited by a person, the tax shall be deducted at the higher of the following: the twice the rate specified in the relevant provisions of the act, twice the rate or rates in force, rate of 5%. Okay. If a provision of 206 double is applicable to a specified person, in addition to the provision of this section, the tax shall be deducted at the higher of the two rates. So it is a PAN available or the PAN Aadhaar link is not been done. So the purpose of this section, specified person means what? So this you have to be very careful by reading this. It read as, for the purpose of this section, specified person means a person who has not filed the return of income for both of the 2 assessment years, that is assessment year 18-19, 19-20, for this assessment year 2021. So for this financial year 2020, relevant to the 2 previous years, immediately prior to the previous year in which tax is required to be deducted, for which the time limit of filing return of income under section 139(1) has expired, and the aggregate of tax deducted at source and tax collected at source in his case means that individual case is rupees 50,000 or more in each of these 2 previous years, provided, this is more important, provided that the specified person shall not include a non-resident who does not have a P in India. Now what they are saying, that this specified person shall not include a non-resident who does not have a P in India. But P, not having a P in India in which year? In previous 2 years or in current year? तो अगर मैं आज किसी को एडवाइस देती हूँ तो 195 में इफ आई एम सेइंग कि तुम्हारे पास नो पी डिक्लेरेशन होना चाहिए, सो वी आर सेइंग एडवाइजिंग एज ऑन डेट, वी ऑलवेज आस्क फॉर द एज ऑन डेट का पी सर्टिफिकेट. बट यहाँ पे जो पी जो स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन है, ये लोग जो स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन को इधर क्लासिफाइड देख रहे हैं, दे आर सीइंग फॉर दिस प्रीवियस 2 years का आपने नॉन कंप्लायंस किया है तो तुम पेनलाइज होगे फॉर दिस ट्वाइस द रेट. ओके, सो अगेन कैन यू लिंक दिस कि ये पी इन इंडिया तुम स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन का विथ अगेन 2 previous year मींस असेसमेंट ईयर 18-19 एंड 19-20 में तुम्हारे पास पी नहीं था इंडिया में, दैट डिक्लेरेशन यू हैव टू टेक नाउ. सो फॉर एग्जांपल कैपिटल गेन्स है अंडर 195 में, कैपिटल गेन्स पे मेरे को टीडीएस डिडक्ट करना है, तो नेट कैपिटल गेन्स दैट इज ग्रॉस माइनस जो भी परचेज एक्विजिशन, तो मेरे को टैक्स डिडक्ट करना है द कैपिटल गेन्स रेट अप्लाई करके. so what I will say, whether I should ask that person is not having a P in India, and P in India में वो भी previous 2 years का declaration, shall I take the double tax avoidance declaration now for each and every transactions? So this is the points to ponder. There is no clarity as such on this. So still, like as my personal opinion, I would suggest on the conservative basis, you always ask for the declaration. You should never, like, because otherwise this the onus, the entire section 206B onus is on deductor. Why, I will tell you. If you read which para 6 of the CBDT circular, you must be aware, right, that the recent CBDT circular has come on 206 AB providing the functionality check, that how you will check PAN डाल के then you can check the bulking and all. वहाँ पे एक para 6 of the CBDT circular that read as para 6 of the CBDT circular number 11 dated 21st June requires that the tax deductors and collectors are expected to carry out necessary due diligence in respect of a specified person established by the above referred functionality. It means that circular ka above referred functionality to consider him as a non-specified if he fall under this provision. So to consider him as a non-specified if he fall under this provision, the proviso excludes this non-residents with no P from the provisions of section 206 AB. So what does it mean that circular is saying that tax deductors are expected to carry out necessary due diligence? So necessary due diligence to determine कि specified person जो है above functionality में, it will be considered him as a non-specified. So जहाँ पे मैं PE को बोलती हूँ कि non-specified है, then the onus is lies on tax deductor. It is not onus is lies on the specified person. So onus is again on me. Okay, I am saying that this person is a specified person, is a non-specified person. Sorry. So I have to do this tax due diligence. Now again they are saying कि functionality पे तुम देखो above referred functionality. So if suppose एक non-resident है जिसके पास PAN number भी नहीं है, because FTS royalty में तो अभी beneficial provision आ गया है कि अगर जितना टैक्स इंडिया के एक्ट के हिसाब से 115A के हिसाब से अगर TDS डिडक्ट होता है, then they are not supposed to file the return of income in India. So then they will not obtain a PAN in India. They will say there is no P in India. तो उनके पास पैन ही नहीं है. हाउ यू विल चेक द फंक्शनैलिटी, बिकॉज फंक्शनैलिटी में नेम बेस्ड सर्च यू आर नॉट अलाउड टू डू, यू आर allowed to do the PAN based search. So how you will say कि by this non-resident is a non-specified person, it is not covered under this. So this is the points to ponder. There is no clarity to the answer कि इसका answer yes है कि no है. In my personal opinion, I would suggest that you take the currently now declaration from the foreign vendors saying that you don't have a peeing for assessment year 18, 19 and 19, 20 because उनका ही due date अभी तक गया है. And then you will examine as and when the circular clarifies that what exactly they were trying to say this. So hope I am clear on this. So if you have any doubt on this aspect, you can ask right now. Okay, I think there are no questions, so I can move to the next slide. Now the income tax framework under the Hong Kong income tax law. So the basis, Hong Kong source of income is subject to the Hong Kong profit tax. The director's fees paid to directors of a company, the control and management which is exercised in Hong Kong are chargeable to salaries tax irrespective of where the director resides. So this is the income tax framework under the Hong Kong. So how it will be taxed? The resident company will be taxed in that country. How the foreign resident individual will be taxed? No salary if visit to Hong Kong less than no salary tax if visit to Hong Kong is less than 60 days in a tax year. Income from services rendered outside of Hong Kong exempt provided the tax of substantially the same nature as Hong Kong salary tax have been paid outside Hong Kong. So this is the thing I have just jotted down. Okay, whenever you advise your client कि तुम्हें वो country का taxation देखना है. So these are all the basic steps you should be aware of. So what are the individual tax rate? What are the corporate tax rates? So it is just for ready reference I have mentioned here. So in Singapore is the tax on the territorial basis. So territorial basis means the country taxes only income derived within its border, irrespective of the residence of the taxpayer. Now coming to the most important thing, कि जब भी हम लोग treaties whenever you read, so we always feel के how to interpret this treaty. So that's the reason what I have done. I have taken the three things, that is a dividend, interest, and the capital gain. These are the three things wherein the inbound and in outbound investments things will get triggered. That how to interpret the law. So first, going with the Article 10 of the taxability of the dividend paid by an Indian company to a non-resident shareholders. So first we go to the Income Tax Act. Dividend is defined under 222 of that in an inclusive manner. Other than ordinary dividend as per the provisions of the applicable law, dividend for the purpose of the act includes the distribution of accumulated profits. So these all are there. Under section 8 of that, dividend is taxable upon declaration, distribution or payment of the same, whichever is earlier. Now clause by clause analysis I have mentioned here. So the clause 10, article 10 ka first clause says dividend paid by a company which is resident of a contracting state to a resident of a other contracting state. Okay, so dividend paid by a Indian company, say, which is a resident of India, to a resident of other contracting state. So, say for example, Singapore, and it may be taxed in that other state. So it may be taxed in Singapore. So here the word used may. क्यों Singapore में भी tax हो सकता है. So this rule allows the full taxation of dividend received from a company resident in a country who is a party to a particular tax treaty, that is a source country. So India is a source country, Singapore is a resident country. So this article के हिसाब से they are saying it will be taxable in Singapore. Again, here they have used may, so it is not necessary that it will be taxable. So this is of course subject to domestic tax law of the country of residence of the shareholder. So जहाँ पे इंडिया में कि as per the अपने यहाँ पे अभी dividend received by the shareholders will be taxable. So उसका कैसे tax होगा, MFN clause, and I will come to that. Interestingly, India-Greece treaty provides for the taxation of dividend only in the source country. It has no clause analogies to the Article 10(1) allowing a taxation in a country of resident of a shareholder. So there is one peculiar country which says that it is a source-based taxation. It will not be taxable in the Greece. Then the Article 10(2). However, such dividends may also be taxed in a contracting state of which the company paying a dividend is a resident, and according to the laws of that state. But if the beneficial owner of the dividend, now here the point comes about the beneficial ownership. Okay, so here saying the dividends may also be taxed in contracting states, means India. of which the company paying a dividend is resident and according to the laws of that state, मतलब as per the Indian laws. But if the beneficial owner of the dividend is a resident of the other contracting state, it means Singapore, then the tax so charge shall not exceed. जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं ना कि सारे कंट्रीज में 10% 5% दिया हुआ है, so then they come up with the provision कि इतना beneficial ownership का percentage fulfill होना चाहिए, then this tax so charge shall not exceed ये percentage 10 15 या जो भी percentage या 5% रहेगा वो. So these are all the criteria or the conditions are there. The dash percentage of the gross amount of dividend if the beneficial owner is a company other than a partnership which holds directly at least 25% capital of the company paying a dividends. मतलब that Singapore company का person should be holding minimum 25% throughout the 63-65 day period. Throughout 365 day period होगा, and that includes a day of the payment of the dividend. मतलब dividend जिस दिन मेरे को मिल रहा है payment basis पे, जिससे कि यहाँ पे लिया हुआ dividends paid. Again there are controversy on paid. What is the meaning of paid? Paid means the adjustments, accrual, declaration, so everything is covered or not. So here there is written no the date of the payment of dividend for the purpose of computing that period. No account shall be taken of changes of ownership that would directly result from a corporate reorganization, मतलब merger, acquisitions and all. Then they have given that relief to them. Dash percentage of the gross amount of the dividend in all other cases. The competent authorities of the contracting state shall by mutual agreement settle the mode of application of these limitations. This paragraph shall not affect the taxation of company in respect of the profits out of which the dividends are paid. So whatever I explained you that I have mentioned in below in one para, the other paras are also that about this Azadi Bachao Andolan and all. But this I have mentioned the prescribed threshold and all. Now further, the international commentaries of the jurisdiction has laid down the principle that the beneficial owner is typically a person who profits economically from the income or asset, or who is fully entitled to enjoy its benefit directly, or who can freely avail the income or asset and deal with it without being accountable to any other person. So I would not say कि मैं इसके behalf पे कर रहा हूँ. So I should be the main beneficial owner. And beneficial owner का declaration you should obtain while giving any now because this is a practical thing. So whenever you give the treaty benefit, you should have the beneficial owner declaration from the share from each and every shareholder for each and every dividend payment. It should not happen that person is receiving a dividend on behalf of someone and you just allow the tax credit and 15 CB में हम लोग ने लिख दिया कि ये treaty relief available. It should not happen. You should have all the declarations in place because otherwise 206 AB is there in place. You have to, otherwise you have to pay from your pocket. So this circular has been upheld by the Supreme Court in the Union of India Azadi Bachao Andolan. Further, the Supreme Court in case of the Vodafone held that the TRC would not be a conclusive evidence of the eligibility of the non-resident to claim benefits under the tax treaty and cannot prevent inquiry by the tax department around any potentially abusive arrangements of the colorable device before the sale of shares without any commercial reasons, merely to obtain the benefits under the tax treaty. Further, the term capital is not defined in the tax treaties and is typically understood in the sense of its meaning under the applicable corporate law. So जैसे मैंने आप लोग को बोला था कि अगर lender is giving borrower some benefit also, so that also it is covered under the dividend or the interest, that is still a question mark. So the debt regarded as a capital under the thin cap provisions may fall within the capital. It may be noted that the taxation as per the tax treaty and the non-taxation of the dividend by the source country in the hands of the non-resident shareholder is subject to a domestic tax law of the source country. Now, for instance, जैसे कि इसमें लिखा है, it may be noted that taxation as per the tax treaty or non-taxation of dividend by the source country. जैसे अपने पहले इसमें 1034 था, which is allowing a source country में exemptions. For instance, earlier India charges dividend declared by to the non-exempt and non-resident shareholder. So it may also be noted that Article 10(2) also applies in the context of the triangular cases. The source country has a right to impose a tax on the dividend paid by a company in the source country to a permanent establishment, that is India branch. जैसे हम लोगों ने देखा था triangular cases. So it is a matter of an ongoing debate as to whether the rate of DDT जो पहले था has to be limited to the rate prescribed in the applicable tax treaty, because earlier the rate which we are paying under the DDT, that was 20.36 and all. So it was argued whether the DDT should be paid as per the India with the relevant treaty. So then the 5% or the 10%, because it was a cost to the company. So the Mumbai bench, in case of the Total Oil India Development, has expressed the doubts over the correctness of the certain decisions rendered by the coordinate benches of the tribunal. That is Argo published earlier. Argo published on 21st October on the issue of taxity applicable to the DDT. In those decisions, it was held that in relation to dividend paid to non-resident shareholders, the rate of DDT payable by an Indian company should not exceed the tax rate specified for dividend income in the applicable tax treaty between India and the country of tax resident of the non-resident shareholder. Having expressed the doubts over the correctness of those decisions, the tribunal has requested the president of the tribunal to constitute a special bench comprising 3 or more tribunal members to adjudicate on this issue. So it's still this issue is open. Now moving to the next slide. So just wanted to know, sir, can I continue or we should keep the other one more session for this? Because still 80 slides are there, 86 slides are there, and I don't want to finish those slides in hurry because it took effort to prepare also, and I want to like justify myself to give, because GAR and MLI is the main thing also that I want to explain. So is
That's
it okay
right.
if we
So
keep another session?
sure. So that's what I would recommend. Otherwise, cause like it's a Saturday evening, so either that if we
Your
extend
voice is not audible.
that's right. That we should keep that. We should keep this lecture. For the remaining portion, we can keep the lecture at some other time. Cause it's a Saturday evening, and if we will extend the lecture beyond 7:05, so that would be again people won't be attending it interestingly, I guess.
Yeah, because it
So
is there's so many things are that I want to finish, and mainly I want to express this chart also, that how what is MFN clause, basically this that most favored nation clause, because this is a very important thing, because this is we are doing well, dealing in day out, because
yeah.
MFN clause, how to read that MFN clause, I want to explain that also.
Yeah. So that's right. In like we will see it, right, ચાવડાજી આપણે એવું જ કરીએ ને કે એમનું એક ફરીથી એક આખું આજે બાકીનું ઘણું બધું બાકી છે
What is
એમનું
the
તમે
reason, Chintan bhai? At the beginning, we lost at least 15, 20 or 25 minutes due to
You are
this
right.
technical issue.
You are right.
That is, but let us take Chintan bhai 5-7 minutes. No matter, yeah.
Sure.
Let it get completed.
Sure.
Okay.
You are right.
Yeah, I am happy to take, sir.
Please, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the term dividends as used in the article, so income from shares, so it read as income from shares. So what is the meaning of shares, whether it is a physical shares or the rights or the mining shares or the founder shares, etc., or other rights not being a debt claims, participating in profits, as well as income from the other corporate rights which is subjected to the same taxation treatment as an income from shares by the laws of the state of which the company making the distribution as a resident. So dividend is also specifically defined in a tax treaty for the purpose of the application of that tax treaty, and is not promised on the definition of dividend under the domestic tax law. So apart from dividend on ordinary shares which is there in India, or the dividend on the certain other class of the shares which are not prevalent in India, is also regarded as a dividend under the tax treaty. So the definition of the dividend under the treaty is wider as compared to the act. Also, income from other rights, not being a shares or debt claims, participating in profits, is also regarded as a dividend under the treaty. However, in certain situations, which I was mentioning earlier, income from debt where the lender effectively shares the risk of the borrower company could also be regarded as a dividend. It is coming from the para 25 of the OECD commentary, wherein they have specifically and the categorically they have mentioned about these things. Further, the income from the corporate rights, which is subject to the same taxation treatment as an income from shares by the domestic tax law, is also regarded as a dividend. So any other item. So some countries, India, UK, uses the term any other item instead of the other corporate rights. Then the term used in the India, UK tax treaty being a wider in nature, it could potentially encompass a dim dividend as well, which would not qualify as a other corporate tax rights. The Article 10(4) read as the provision of paragraph 1 and 2 shall not apply if the beneficial owner of the dividend. So it is talking about that 5% and the 10%, that is a lower rate, will not apply if you are earning a dividend from the permanent establishment of India. That is the crux of this slide. That is the Article 4. It is wholly entirely talking of if you are not following, if you are not fulfilling that criteria, and if you are effectively earning from the from the permanent establishment, then it will be taxable under Article 4 and not under Article 10, sorry, under Article 10(4) and not under Article 10(1)(2). And if suppose you are not satisfying a criteria of the beneficial ownership also, then you will be go back and you will be taxed under the Income Tax Act at the rate of 20%. Again, same thing, the Article 5, which also talks about the extraterritorial taxation, like in where a company which is a resident of a contracting state derives profits or income from other contracting state, other state may not impose any tax on the dividend paid by a company, except in so far as the dividends are paid to a resident of that other state. So what in simple terms they are saying that this rules prohibits the extraterritorial taxation by country A of the dividend paid by or undistributed profits of a company resident in country B. Even though company earns a profit in country A, then the only situation that allow a country A to tax dividend whether such dividend is received by a resident of country A. So this is like a controlled foreign corporation rules, which is not there in India currently. So this 10(5) is currently not applicable in India. So how it will work, where the shareholder of the payer company on which dividend is paid is effectively connected to a P in a country A of a resident of country B or any other country B. However, it may be noted that this provision places no embargo on country A to tax the profits of the payer company in country A if permissible under the CFC rules. Now, what is the meaning of CFC rules? Controlled foreign corporation rules are the features of an income tax system designed to limit the artificial deferral of tax by using a offshore low tax entities. So the rules are needed only with respect to income of an entity that is not currently taxed to the owners of the entity. So they are not paying the taxes, they are just deferring. But the India currently has no CFC rules, so there will be no Indian tax on the foreign profits. Otherwise, the recipient will be liable to tax. Foreign declare kiya, but you would have earned it, so you pay the taxes. So that CFC rules are not there in India. Now, comparative WHT rate of the dividend income, including the benefit of the MFN clause. Now, if you see the treaty in India with the France, the WHT rate of dividend is India-France treaty says 10%, okay? And the MFN clause is there, yes, okay? Now, country whose WHT rate is sought to be important, because then the India-Colombo treaty, the benefit of the India, I would say instead of the Colombia. First, I'll explain what is the meaning of MFN clause. So MFN clause, the full form of MFN is the most favored nation clause. Okay. So whenever the treaty entered by the two competent authorities, so India ka government competent authority and foreign ka competent authority, they come together. They discuss, then they come up with the treaties. In that treaty, they will sign कि dividend का मेरे हिसाब से rate will be 10%. I will reserve a right of 10%. But then the other treaty says, okay, but let's do that कि अगर इसके बाद कोई भी treaty enter होता है, आज suppose 2021 है, 2021 के बाद में कोई भी treaty enter होगा, उसके ऊपर अगर इसका comparatively rate अगर कम होता है, then I will take the benefit of that rate because we are deciding this rate as on the market date today, as on date. Okay, so then इसके बाद कोई भी treaty अगर enter होता है, then we will provide that benefit of the most favored nation clause to that treaty. Okay, and this most MFN clause will be entered in the protocol of the treaty. That protocol should be there in the treaty itself. जो जैसा income tax के website पे when you download India France treaty, तो India France treaty के नीचे protocol दिया रहेगा and there will be a MFN clause which read as ke whatever subsequent treaty entered after this and this treaty, then you can impart the rate of tax. Sometimes there are the rate and scope. जैसे हम लोग scope import कर सकते हैं या rate import कर सकते हैं. Then in that they have mentioned that the rate you can impart. So it means मेरे country 10% दे रहा है India France, so I can import the 5% वाला treaty whatever entered by after the India France treaty. So now they are going to the Colombia. Now, instead of the Colombia, the benefit of the India-Slovenia treaty can also be taken, which provides for the 5% rate on the dividend provided the recipient of dividend holds at least 10% of the capital, paying the dividends. Otherwise, WHT rate would be 15%. However, under the MLI, India-Slovenia tax treaty also prescribes a minimum holding period of 365 days to avail the 5% WHT rate. Taxpayers who intend to rely on the MFN clause to take the advantage of 5% in India-Slovenia tax treaty may also need to comply with the 365 days holding period along with the minimum 10% shareholding criteria. So first, you should have the 10% shareholding in that country. Second, you should be holding that investment for the 365 days. Then only you will get the benefit of 5% of the India Slovenia tax treaty. Now, some other treaties also provide the notification that the government should come up with and enter the notification to allow the MFN clause. So that's the reason, if there is no notification and still you have the MFN, then you don't go to a treaty which gives that notification wala criteria. You go with the treaty even though there is a MLI, even though there is a MLI restriction. MLI means why there is a MLI. Now, what is the question of what is the meaning of MLI? MLI means a multilateral instrument. Now, this multilateral instrument has been entered. India is not completely entered with everyone. In India, Mauritius, they are not yet entered. Multilateral instrument means what? It's a base erosion profit shifting. So they have the figure के यहाँ से base बना के यहाँ पे से erode करके you will take away our profits and you don't pay our tax in India. That's the reason BEPS, that is base erosion profit shifting, they entered these MLI provisions and MLI में ये सारे criteria enter किए additionally that you should comply with that criteria, then only you will take this benefit, otherwise you will not take. So whenever client comes to you and ask the question, first you will check the residential status of that client. Second, you will check the what are the like liable to tax and subject to tax. At least you should be aware of what is happening. Third, the dividend taxation. If they want to claim the treaty relief में भी अगर उनका 20% से कम है, मतलब मेरा 15% है बट मेरे को 15% नहीं भरना है, मेरे को और 10% and 5% के लिए जाना है, then one more journey is there. You have to see the protocol. प्रोटोकॉल के अंदर MFN है कि नहीं. अगर MFN है तो MFN के अंदर अगेन देयर इज अ क्राइटेरिया के किसका MFN तुम कोई कंट्री देख रहे हो और वो कंट्री में नोटिफिकेशन का क्राइटेरिया और वो नहीं फुलफिल हो रहा है, तो बेटर टू गो विद द कंट्री which gives the benefit of this, even though they put some restrictions of this holding period. And of course इतना अगर 5% का अगर WHT rate दे रहा है as compared to 20%, then they will put some restrictions so that you will not pay some, no, nothing you will pay and you will just rush out. So that's the reason we have to see each and everything minutely. Likewise मैंने ये सबके लिए बनाया है what is a Germany किसके लिए क्या है करके. So this rate chart will be available. You can see and also you can personally go and check in the MLI criteria etc. You can do that. Now moving to the taxability of the interest paid. So sir, shall I continue or shall I stop here? BK Chawda sir.
Okay, Janka, what you said is correct. Now, most of the members Saturday won't make it's a Saturday evening, Jankna ma'am, so it won't make sense like to continue cause like then members would be like having some personal times. So we'll make sure that in this month itself we'll keep your another lecture and it is going very interesting. So if you could conclude it, then we can keep it some other time, I guess.
Yeah, sure, not an issue. Just give me the dates because again in the next month there is one seminar is there on the Chai Pe Charcha on the international tax only. So where I will be the speaker and the certain questions and I've been asked. And one more is also there. So you please let me know the date so I can reserve and we can
share
take it
that
up again.
link for that Chai Pe Charcha, that what you said. We will share that also in our group and we'll ask our members to join in that as well. And we'll keep your lecture as well. So that members can take your advantage.
Okay, sure.
Really, ma'am?
I do that because that is a women's study circle. Still, I'll check with them whether men can join or not. Because
Madam,
that
no
was,
issue. Even
yeah.
otherwise also the way in which you are explaining, madam, it requires much more time than what we were expecting. But really it is lucid one also.
She's going in very good. She's going in very good depth. So it's
Super.
wonderful.
But madam, coming time is for international taxation. So really we are interested to have one more lecture, definitely.
Like at least even after we'll keep the one lecture in this month and then we'll keep we'll make sure Chavda Sahib કે એમનું એક આપણે every quarterly એકાદું lecture તો મેમનું રાખીએ so that we
હા,
get the
definitely,
update about the
definitely.
international taxation regularly.
કારણ કે ચિંતનભાઈ છે ને ભાઈ, હવે ઇન્ટરનેશનલી એટલા બધા ઇનફ્લો અને આઉટફ્લો થઈ ગયા છે ને, that we need to have the knowledge of it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
અને
sure,
જંખા
sir.
મેડમ તમને આભાર
Your
કીધું,
voice is
ચાવડા
very
સાહેબ
low.
કરશે, પણ
Hello.
તમને જય જલારામ હું તમને અત્યારથી કહી દઉં. કારણ કે એટલે શરૂઆત મારે જય જલારામ કહીને કરવી હતી, પણ ના થઈ શકી.
No, I am extremely sorry because of my technical glitches and I was struggling since 4:30 that what is
No
happening
issue,
and
madam, it's okay.
No,
It's
no,
okay,
no
madam.
issues.
You also
No issues, no
tried a
issues.
lot.
No, અમારાથી પણ આવું થતું જ હોય છે, એટલે that's not a big deal એમ.
no,
Okay,
actually,
હવે
and actually yesterday only I tested with my colleagues and then Zoom and also it was working very fine. So
No,
today I was
no,
confident
no.
and 4:30 I said okay then I will do it, but then suddenly I was like very nervous that how it will go. I don't know, already I'm late.
No issue.
but technology, madam.
Yes, sir.
Sure, રોમિલભાઈ,
Okay. Hello.
ચાવડા સાહેબને આભાર વિધિ કરશે.
હા.
ચાવડા સાહેબ.
Thank you, Jankana madam. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yes, madam. Really, we struggled a little bit in the beginning due to some technical reasons, but it's okay. Now it is going to be part of our life because technology has certain limitations also. But it's okay, man. Otherwise, the lecture was really fantastic and very lucid. The way in which we were expecting, ma'am. You did in the same way because you gone into depth also, as well as you started from the very thin level and then gone into depth. So it was really a learning lesson. But still, madam, as it is being international taxation and very few people are practicing in this area. But yes, definitely coming time is going to be very much a beautiful time for every chartered accountant to practice into international taxation. Because nowadays the transactions with international people and the way in which the FDI and this foreign investment is coming into India and the way in which the Indian government is becoming very welcoming for the international investment. So definitely everybody needs. So thank you, ma'am. You started level, and definitely, ma'am, in the coming time we will arrange one more lecture. And the way in which Chintan Bhai said, this is the subject which we need to at least touch upon at least once in a quarter. So we request here you, ma'am, to spare your time, of course, after looking towards your schedule. But fabulously, it was superb lecture. It was a very learning lecture, and one very important request. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Some noise is coming. That is why. Ma'am, one request that you share your PPT, madam, in our this. Even you can share on the email of Chintan Bhai, so it can be shared with the members, madam.
આવી ગયું છે ચાવડા સાહેબ, આવી ગયું છે મેલમાં.
Yeah, I am
Have you
already.
been? Okay, fine. Then share into the group, bhai.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jankana madam. Thank you, Romil bhai, for handling the whole seminar, Chintan bhai, and all the participants. Today, I think the seminar was little bit more interactive than the normal one. So thank you, Jankana madam, and
Thank you, sir,
along
for
with the
giving me an
request to come
opportunity.
again whenever we request you to come down.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Okay. Romil bhai, we complete our seminar here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.